You know how to use Google. You already know that there's no state income tax in Texas and that we've got a ton of sunshine throughout the year, right? That's the base level of knowledge you need. But if you're seriously thinking about packing up the car and moving to Texas, there's some really hard truths that you need to know ahead of time. And you're not going to find all of these in a regular relocation video on YouTube. I'm talking about the stuff that only somebody that was raised in Texas or has been here for decades is actually going to know about the state. So I'm going to give you the unfiltered truth here because I've been seeing videos lately about, oh, I left Texas and moved back to California because I hated it and then moved back to whatever state you came from. And that's fine. If you didn't like Texas, cool. But if you're thinking about coming to Texas, if you know these things ahead of time, either you're going to just solidify in your brain that you made the right choice, or you might be able to save yourself a lot of time and money by making the decision not to come here first. First thing we need to talk about is Texas. Aside from the sheer size of the state, Texas isn't just one state or two. Most people think that you're either tumbleweeds and cowboy hats or you're Austin. Not the case at all. Texas is basically like 5 different states. Because if you're searching for places to move here, the difference between Houston and Amarillo may as well be the difference between Miami and Omaha, Nebraska. That's about how different they are. Completely different areas, completely different people, completely different climates. You've of course got the Gulf Coast, and no, you're not going to come here and find a Great Barrier Reef and crystal clear blue waters. It is what it is. We make do. When we want to go to the coast, we go to the coast and we get in the salt water. East Texas is very, very piney. Think kind of like the southeast of the U.S. It's wet, it's humid, it's hot, and it's got massive trees, like 150-foot tall trees. West Texas is a desert, and we've even got mountains in West Texas. Yeah, we do. We have a mountain range. It's not the Rockies. It's part of the Chihuahua Mountains, but we've got mountains in Texas. West Texas, like I said, is a desert. It is dry. There's not a lot of rainfall. There's a lot of oil. There's a lot of tumbleweeds. There's a lot of cattle. We've even got things like elk, bighorn sheep, mule deer. All of that stuff's native to Texas. It's just in West Texas. South Texas, that's basically the border. You've got giant ranches. And when I say giant ranches, I think we may have some ranches that are about the size of Delaware. So huge ranches, vast open areas. And again, hot, and it depends. If you're closer to the coast, it's humid. If you're closer to West Texas, it's more dry. But again, South Texas is its own culture. Now, I'll talk about North Texas a little bit, and don't let anybody from the Panhandle hear me say that Panhandle is part of North Texas, because it's the Panhandle, but it's in the northern part of Texas. North Texas, I'm going to talk about, DFW Metroplex, okay? Dallas-Fort Worth is massive, 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 massive. Lots of cars, lots of people, very flat. Used to be a lot of farmland that now has just huge subdivisions, and it's growing faster by the day. That's also the area where you're going to find the most tornadoes in Texas. You're going to have some pretty severe weather up there. So, if you're not afraid of weather and you want to be in a huge metro area, Fort Worth and Dallas are a pretty good place to start. And as long as I'm talking about it, and I already called it North Texas, the Panhandle, for the most part, the Panhandle's pretty flat. There's a lot of agriculture that happens in the Panhandle, and that's everything from growing plants to cattle. Again, you do have oil up there. You've got some really big canyons and some physical features that don't exist elsewhere. So again, completely different area. And at this point, I've worked all the way around the state and I haven't talked about Central Texas. So Central Texas is what most people think of as the hill country. But the hill country kind of starts along I-35 around Austin and then moves west. That's where it's hilly. That's where I live. Absolutely beautiful views, rolling hills, some bigger hills, especially as you get down closer to the San Antonio and west of San Antonio. But that's where the hill country is. Now, the eastern part of Central Texas is a little bit more like East Texas, where you've got big trees, farmland, rolling hills, just a little bit different. I-35, by the way, is on an ancient fault line, and it separates the hill country from the rest of Central Texas. Now, why did I just take so much time explaining that to you? Because if you decide that you want to move to Texas, before you come here on a scouting trip, you better lock in a couple of parts of Texas that are interesting to you. Do research, find out more about the areas. Now, if you've got a job that's going to move you to DFW or Austin or Houston or San Antonio, okay, you're pretty limited, and then you can kind of focus in on that area. But if you're just moving to Texas for a new start, opportunities, maybe retirement or something like that, do your due diligence on that area. You got to have people on the ground where you want to go that you can trust. Obviously, I can answer a lot of questions about most parts of Texas, but I wouldn't represent somebody as a buyer up in the DFW area or in Houston. I'm just not that familiar with how the local kind of customs work there. So if you're needing somebody on the ground in an area that's not Central Texas, let me know. I've got agents that I know throughout the state. I'll put you in contact with somebody that I personally trust. Hopefully that's a good enough endorsement that you can trust them as well. Second big thing I want to talk about is property taxes in Texas. Again, you probably Googled, and it's one of the downsides about Texas, right? Property taxes are astronomical. It's so expensive. That's what you see all over the news. The truth is they can be brutal, but it depends on where you go. I've seen property taxes just here in Central Texas. I've seen property taxes as low as 1.4% of the value of your land and your house or whatever you have there. And I've seen property taxes as high as 3.5% of the value of your house and your land. And here's the thing, those higher property taxes, those are going to be in master plan subdivisions, suburbs of your major metro areas. The further you get out into the county away from those major metro areas, typically the lower those taxes are going to be. So if you're looking for a little bit of land, some peace and quiet, you're probably going to be rewarded with lower property taxes. If you're wanting suburbia, if you're wanting sidewalks, if you're wanting a lot of amenities in a neighborhood, you're going to end up paying higher property taxes. Now, here's the dirty little secret though. Those higher property tax rates, 3, 3.5, 2.9, those are typically going to be in areas that have higher property values as well. When you get out into rural areas, the property values are typically a little bit cheaper. So it's almost like if you're wanting to get into suburbia and you want all those amenities and you want all those things, you're almost going to get double taxed because you're going to pay a higher price to get there, and then you're also going to pay higher taxes on top of it. So if you're looking to downsize, get rid of some of your pay burden, then it might be worth looking into a little more rural area if that's something that could be appealing to you. If you don't know if it's appealing to live in a rural area, I would highly suggest you reach out. I mean, again, if it's somewhere here in Central Texas, let me know. If it's in another part of the state, let me know and I'll put you in contact. But I would go find an Airbnb and stay somewhere for a week and see how you like it. You may not think that rural is your thing, but the more people I talk to that have experienced it, they're like, you know what? This is a lot better than I thought it would be. I don't miss not being able to go to the restaurants all the time, all the convenience of being 3 minutes away from everything. Most people don't miss that stuff. And it's a trade-off between not having all of that stuff readily at hand and being away from people and getting some solitude and peace and quiet and being able to go out into nature. And the great thing now, we've got this amazing internet called Starlink, and you can be a telecommuter basically from anywhere in the world. So if you telecommute, it might be a little easier to get out into a rural area and try to have more of an experience lifestyle than that hustle and bustle that we're used to in major metro areas. And the last thing I'll mention on taxes is, depending on the state you come from, some states don't have property taxes. Some states have locked in property taxes. But a lot of times, even if you factor in property taxes, it's still cheaper cost of living to move to Texas than somewhere like California, New York, other places on the East Coast, just because the cost of living here is cheaper overall. Texas is still below the median for the country in terms of what it costs to live in the state, even when you take into account the property taxes. Okay, next thing about Texas is affordability is a moving target. You may have read, and I just mentioned, that affordability here is really good, but affordability in Austin and in Austin suburbs is a lot different than affordability an hour outside of San Antonio, maybe kind of in the area that I grew up in, Shiner. In Austin, we're still a lot cheaper than, say, California pricing, but we're kind of catching up in a hurry. And I mentioned living somewhere a little bit more rural. And by rural, I should say small towns. Okay, there's small towns, 30 minutes from Austin, an hour from Austin, 2 hours from Austin, or Dallas, or Houston, or San Antonio, right? Any of these small towns in Texas. I grew up in a town that's about 2 hours from Houston, about 2 hours from San Antonio, and about an hour and a half from Austin. Right in the middle of all of them, 2,300 people. We still had grocery stores, gas stations, lumber yards, everything that you need. But the price of living there is so much cheaper than when you get close to that metro area. I would say probably in the neighborhood of 60 or 70% of what you would pay as you got closer into an area like Austin or San Antonio. And I'm just talking the suburbs, not actually getting into Austin or San Antonio proper. But the key on that is remembering the more rural you get, even though the property probably is going to be cheaper and the taxes are going to be cheaper. The wages may not match what you're looking for from a lifestyle perspective. Again, if you're a telecommuter, you've got the ability to travel, no problem. You can make your money the way you make your money. But if you're going to rely on what you're doing in that area to generate your income, okay, it may be a little bit tougher. So you're really going to have to study those areas. Again, all of this is about research and having local people you can talk to and trust. So when you're deciding on a part of Texas, you're going to have to measure three things the way I see it. You're going to have to look at what's the affordability, what is the income potential, and then what's your lifestyle expectation. If you miss on any of those, you might be absolutely miserable. If you can hit on all three, again, like I said earlier, you might find that you're just as home in a more rural part or a small town in Texas than you would be in a major metro area. As you're looking through deciding where you're going to live in Texas, you've got to keep one thing in mind. In all parts of Texas, the heat is a real thing. Now, on the opposite side of that, the cold, okay, even in North Texas, we don't get that much snow. The DFW area, the Panhandle gets more than we do in Central Texas, and down by the coast, it's very rare. You're going to have to deal with some freezing issues at some point. But the heat, you're going to deal with everywhere. It doesn't matter if you're in Brownsville, if you're in Amarillo, Houston, or El Paso, it's hot. It's just different kinds of hot. Again, I mentioned, as you get further into West Texas and then North Texas, you're getting further and further away from a major body of water. So the air is going to be a lot drier. What that means is the temperatures are going to be a hell of a lot higher. I mean, we're talking 107, 108, 112. Those are real numbers in parts of Texas. Even in Austin, which is Central Texas, I've seen temperatures as high as 109. As you get closer to the coast, if you look on Google, you may think, oh man, I've really found it. You know, in Houston, the average high temperature may only be 98. But the difference is in Houston, you might have 95% humidity. So that feels like temperature's still going to be 108. It's just, what do you want? Do you want to walk outside and feel like you need a shower? Or would you like to be in a drier climate so that in the evenings, even when it was 115 during the day, it may feel a lot cooler just because you don't have that humidity holding on to that heat. But here's the other thing. It's not just the heat and the cold, okay? Again, Texas is big. The one thing we don't have, at least not that I know of, many of, are earthquakes. Yay, California people, come on, we're good. Now, what we do have along the coast is you're going to have to deal with hurricanes and tropical storms and stuff like that. I mentioned earlier, DFW area, really anywhere kind of from just north of Austin to Dallas-Fort Worth and up into Northeast Texas, you're going to have to deal with tornadoes at some point in time and very, very massive hailstorms. And when I say massive hailstorms, I mean massive hail. Have you ever seen a piece of ice that's the size of a baseball come flying out of a cloud at 100 miles an hour? It's not pretty. And then you're also going to have to deal with ice storms from time to time. Here in Central Texas, when we're getting sleet, it doesn't take much. If we get 1/10 of an inch or 2/10 of an inch of ice on the ground in the winter, they're going to shut the place down. Major roads can be taken care of, but I'm telling you, the schools are going to shut down for the day. We call them ice days. They're built in because we don't have the ability to deal with that from an infrastructure perspective. So yes, it's the heat. Yes, it's the cold, but you also have to figure on ice. You have to figure on tornadoes and massive storms. You have to figure on the hurricanes and stuff you're going to get around the coast. And every once in a while, yep, you're going to have to deal with a power outage too. Now, we don't have rolling brownouts and rolling blackouts and all of that stuff. At least yet, the more people that come here, I guess the possibility gets greater and greater, right? But every once in a while, you will lose power. I mean, there's parts of Texas that lost power for about a week during the major ice storm that we had 2 or 3 years ago. The good thing is I'm 50 years old. That is the first time in my life I've ever seen an ice storm like that. So we do lose power from time to time. Sometimes lightning will knock it out and stuff like that. But generally we get it back pretty quickly. But at the end of the day, there are extreme weather phenomenon in Texas. You have to ask yourself, how much are you okay with? If you're moving here from Oklahoma, you probably don't even bat an eye at thunderstorms and tornadoes and hail. Not a deal. If you're coming here from California, I'm telling you, you have never seen a thunderstorm in your life until you've come to Texas. So what level of comfort do you have with temperature extremes, climate extremes, stuff like that? You can get away from certain parts of it. Again, the further inland you move, the less likelihood that you're going to have to deal with a hurricane. The farther you move to the west, the less likely you are going to have to deal with massive thunderstorms and tornadoes and stuff like that. They do happen, but it's a lot more rare. So if you're moving here and you're set on it, you may want to take the climate extremes just into consideration enough to figure out what's your threshold. Fifth thing I want to talk about is driving, okay? Driving is a lifestyle consideration here. It's not a factor, it is a lifestyle consideration. I know, California, you might be on the road for an hour in traffic. That may only be 10 miles. Here where I live, everything is 15 minutes away. If I want to go to downtown Austin, it's going to be 30 minutes. The airport's 30 minutes. And what a lot of people can't fully grasp is I can drive 4 hours, maybe 5 hours in any direction, and I'll still be in the state of Texas. So you may be like, oh, great, I'm a huge Cowboys fan, and I'm living in San Antonio. I'm going to go to a Cowboys game. Well, that's going to be about a 6-hour trip. And there's a very real possibility that you're going to do your research and you're going to find school districts that you love, and you're going to find a house on a piece of land, and you're going to realize, holy cow, that house is 30 or 35 minutes from the nearest grocery store. Again, it's a lifestyle consideration. What do you want? You may not have to go to the grocery store but once a month, but in that time of a pinch, when you've got to get something now, it's kind of a pain to drive 45 minutes just to grab milk, and that's just milk. If you're out in a rural area, where's the nearest hospital? Where's the nearest urgent care clinic? Stuff like that. Again, it's a big state. I think 260,000 square miles or something crazy. It's huge. So we know as people that live here, you are going to have to drive long distances to get to things. And I'm here to tell you, if you move to a rural area and you've got friends that are 30 minutes away in Austin, 30 minutes might seem kind of trivial, but when you get home, you don't want to make that 30-minute drive. Again, this is a lifestyle thing. Make sure you pick where you're moving based on how you want your life to be lived. Are you moving here when you're a downsizer and you want your kids and grandkids to come and visit you? Okay, that's not bad. They'll come and stay for a week and then they'll leave. Same thing with friends. But if you're at a stage of life where you want to be around people and you want to be a part of clubs being like, I don't know, church groups or Jeep clubs or hiking groups or book clubs, things like that. If you need that in your life, then you probably don't want to be too removed, because again, you're going to be home, then you're going to have to go to the club and then go back home. After a while, that's going to wear on you. So I guess in a nutshell on that, if you're planning on moving outside of a major metro, make sure you take that into account and make sure that what you need on a day-to-day basis is close by. So if you're serious about moving to Texas, don't let it become a blind leap of faith. I mean, yeah, you can trust in God, but make sure you do your homework also. And again, if you need help, reach out to me. That's what I'm here for. Even if you're not coming to Central Texas, I've got agents that I know all over the place. I can help you. Just, you gotta make a phone call.